Dogs should never have consequences for any of their actions. This is what you are led to believe if you follow most modern dog trainers today. However, I have a different opinion, and it may not be a popular one, but it comes from the position of experience with thousands of dogs. That is not an exaggeration. Look, I would love to live in the world where we never correct a dog. Everything is taught with food and love. We never pull a lead, we never use a deep voice, we never say no. But I'm here to tell you that is not the reality of the world that we do live in. I believe dogs can be brought up with consequences, provided they are done the right way. Now, let me elaborate. When it comes to consequences for a dog, you certainly have to take into consideration the temperament of the dog and where the actions are coming from. Let me explain. If it comes from a place of fear, this is something that needs to be rewired. This is not something we should be telling a dog off for. Telling a dog off for being scared is not something that has a consequence. This is a rewiring. We need to get that dog's confidence up to change its connection with what it's scared of, whether it be dogs, kids, other objects, anything like that. We need to try and habituate that dog and get it comfortable with what it's scared of. That should be a given. I'm talking outside that category. I'm talking about dogs that are displaying actions not through any fear, except the dog who is for what we call dominant. I know there's people who don't believe in that word out there. Dogs that may be dominant, confident, bullies, whatever word you want to use. A dog that is outspoken, that has never had much training when it's young, during its imprinting stage, has not had leadership, not been taught boundaries. So if you want to use a comparison here, let's think about a teenager who has been brought up with parenting that has allowed that teenager to do what they want, when they want. That's going to be a recipe for disaster in most cases. So if we're talking about a dog and you're out in public and you have a dog that is not scared of anything, that simply just announces itself to anything it wants, whether it be a dog, a bike, a child, like I explained earlier, and it is aggressive, it is boisterous, it is loud, I believe that dog needs to understand there's consequences for that action. Now, the most important thing here is that if you time these consequences, now these consequences could be a verbal correction, body pressure, spatial pressure over the dog, putting them into a position like a sit, a small lead correction, some consequence that is timed perfectly to mark that behavior being unacceptable. I'm here to tell you, as someone who has used that method many, many times with many, many dogs, done right, it works. And what it doesn't do, what you will be led to believe out there, it does not create fear to you, the handler, if you do it right. As I explained to my clients, if you walk up to a dog that is displaying no behaviors that you would find unacceptable, laying on the ground, doing nothing, and you walk up and you yell and you clap your hands, of course you're going to create fear towards you, because the dog has no connection with what it did in what action. That should be obvious, but unfortunately it's not to a lot of people, and many people out there will spread the message that no matter what you do with a consequence, whether it's timed right, timed wrong, you'll create fear of a dog towards you. Trust me, from someone who has used this many times with many dogs, if you do it right and they understand the consequence, if anything, that dog looks up to you for leadership. Dogs need leadership. Now, I'm not talking about cruelty here. I'm not talking about hitting dogs, scolding dogs severely, nothing like that. Let's be sensible here. I'm not talking about that category. I'm talking about a simple mark of a behavior, like I've said, a clap, a verbal, a small lead correction, a word no. Watch out, the word no. People will also lead to believe the word no is a very bad word for a dog. That is complete rubbish. You can use a marker of no. We use the marker of yes. Why can't we use no? If you time a no and a yes well, you can work back and forth until the dog understands right from wrong, very simply. So, I believe dogs can and should have consequences for their actions, provided they are given for actions that are not fearful towards things. I say that again. If you do it right, you are going to have the dog that understands when it's in public around other animals and people and moving objects, that it can't do what it wants to do at any time. Look, a lot of these actions your dogs are doing at this time are merely instinctive behaviors. It's what they do. They bark, they jump, they get excited. But they live in our world and they walk on a lead, and we have to be in public and we've got to have them controlled. So if anything, we are trying to get a dog to go against its instincts, which is very hard. I completely understand that. But again, they live in our world and we need to do this. So please don't be fooled into believing that if you tell your dog off, they will be scared of you. It should all be done in context towards the behavior your dog's doing. It should not be excessive, and it needs to be timed perfectly. If you miss the timing, no, you should not tell your dog off and give them a consequence, because they will get confused. So if you miss the moment, you have to wait until the next one. And then when you get it right and you time it perfectly, the dog goes, bingo, I understand. If I do that, you do this. And then they realize, if we come across this environment again and they don't do what they were going to do before, and they get praise off you, and you use positive reinforcement, which I'm all for, your dog learns that there is a decision in most environments, A or B. A is, I react instinctively, I bark, I get boisterous, I be out of control, I get corrected, I get told off, my behavior gets marked, and there is a consequence. Or B is, I come out and I manage my instincts, I manage to keep them down, and I get nothing but praise off my owner, and I look up to them and I go, wow, that is what I want. So guess what your dog learns to do if you do this well? It looks to option B because it likes the praise and it likes the positive reinforcement. So in my opinion, if I'm out with my dog and they are going to display a behavior that I do not want, I am going to wait for that behavior. I'm going to mark and correct it, hence a consequence. Then I'm going to go out to that environment again, and I'm going to wait to see what decision they make. I don't micromanage them. I don't often give a preemptive leave it. I wait to see what my dog's actions are, more of an operant conditioning. The dog displays a behavior which elicits a response from me, which will be a correction or praise. And the dog learns to work for the praise and look for that. And if you do this right, I promise you, your dog will understand this, but you have to time it right. The dog has to understand what it's for, and it can't be for fear. We have to understand that. Fear is dealt with in a different way. As I said earlier in the video, telling your dog off for being scared will not make sense to your dog. We need to condition our dog for that. However, when you work through that fear, we also need to understand that when your dog is more confident in public and in environments, and you know they are not fearful anymore, we have to then go on the side of we can correct them. We have to understand when we've worked through things and we've rewired dogs' brains and they're comfortable in these environments, that we can lean on the side of consequence. But firstly, you need to rewire that dog. You need to help that dog. So this video is more about dogs that are confident, boisterous, outgoing, instinctive dogs who just want to announce themselves to the world, maybe aggressively, maybe just frustration. Even frustration can have consequences. I don't believe it's acceptable for you to walk your dog in public and your dog to bark at every dog just because they want to get to them. You should know, and if you don't, if you have your dog bark in public and it wants to get to a dog and you allow them to get to that dog, guess what they learn? Well, that will be reinforced. If I do that, you let me have my way. And you are going to have a dog that is in public barking at more things. So please, do not believe these trainers out there, who some of them are the most popular, have a lot of followers. They are telling you that your dog cannot have consequences, cannot be corrected for any behavior at all. This is not true. I promise you, I am not leading you the wrong way here, but you need to do it right. So find a dog trainer that can help you, or do it yourself, but understand to do it the right way, because if you don't, it can have a negative effect. Remember, the biggest point I've come back to here is timing of what you do. If you time it right, the dog connects with the behavior and understands the behavior. If we can mark behaviors that we want more of, sitting, going to place, down, come, why can't we mark behaviors we want less of? If they understand one thing, surely they can understand the other side. But a certain group of people will have you believe that no, dogs can't understand any of that. Nothing aversive. We can't do anything to stress a dog. Life is stressful for humans and for dogs. There's elements of stress that cannot be avoided. If you bring up your dog and your main mindset is, I am not going to allow my dog to have any stress in their life, you are going to be challenged to have a dog that listens to you when you want them to in public without getting food out of your pocket. And even then, we need to understand the power of food is very limited in the real world. It loses power very quickly in more distracted environments, and that is the truth. No one can deny that. The more distracted the environment, the less power food will have, because these things will overshadow the power of food. We all know the term, we should know the term overshadowing. Basically, that means the most obvious stimulus is going to outweigh the other, whether it be food over voice, or movement over voice, or a dog over food. So there's a dog in the distance and you're asking your dog to pay attention to your food. Most dogs, that dog over there will overshadow the power of this food. So you, as a person who have been led to believe this food will do everything, feel stuck. That is where you need to have another tool and understand that it is okay to be tactile with your dog, which means through touch, touching your dog, turning your dog, using lead pressure, putting them in a sit, because their ears will close, they won't hear you, and your food will not work. So please remember, bring your dog up in a logical, common sense way. Don't get caught up in this agenda that leads you to believe you cannot tell your dog off, because you can. So to finish this off, what do I believe of us? As I've said, I believe dogs should have consequences for actions that are unacceptable coming from a confident dog, not fearful. They need consequences to help them grow up with guidance, with structure, with boundaries, foundations, and they understand what you want, when you want it. Dogs are very binary, they're a very in-the-moment animal. They understand right from wrong. They will not become scared of you if you do this the right way. Again, we are not trying to be cruel. We are trying to be a leader to our dog. We're not trying to be dominant. I don't use that word in dog training. We are not trying to dominate our dogs. We are trying to be a good, strong leader to our dogs so they understand what the rules are and they can go on and live in society and walk down streets and go to cafes and go out to breakfast with you and go to a beach, and if you go to dog parks, if you do that they understand what is acceptable in all these environments. I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, please give me a like, a share, a follow, tell your friends, follow my page. It is very appreciated for coming to my channel, and I'll see you soon in your next video.